Well guys, it's been a while, but I'm finally back and welcome back to the channel everybody. My name is Saturn and in today's video I'm going to be doing an updated Diluc build because the last one I did was not complete. That was just basically giving you the information, but now on screen and on paper you should be able to see what your Diluc build should be looking like. And this is by no means the best Diluc build, but I think that it's very strong and this is what you should have in mind when building your Diluc. So I'm going to go ahead and showcase it against the Cryo Flower, and then we'll be right back and I'll go over all of his build. So I hope you did like that little showcase there with the flower. Diluc hits very hard, especially with this build. So let me go ahead and start off with his stats. So his stats, HP does not matter. I cover this just about every video, but HP is irrelevant. Attack is about 2700, and then his elemental mastery is 86. That's a bit low. You can build Diluc with elemental mastery, but I prefer attack over elemental mastery, at least with this build, because I'm not very lucky with artifacts. Taking a look at his stats, he's got a 61% crit rate, 151% crit damage, which is pretty nice, especially for Diluc. And do keep in mind that Diluc does scale with crit rate, so try to build a little bit more crit damage over crit rate. He's got 111% energy recharge. He gets so much energy, so this does not matter. I believe his ult is only 60 energy. He's got a 61.6 pyro damage bonus, but it does go up with the 4-piece Crimson, which we'll get to in just a minute. And then, yeah, that's basically all the stats that you need to know about Diluc. Let's go ahead and move on to his weapon. For his weapon, we have Wolf's Gravestone. I was lucky enough to pull this. I think I was wishing for a weapon for another 5-star character, and I ended up pulling this instead. And I'm actually glad that I did, because it really made me start using Diluc a lot more. But I get it, not everybody has this. If you do have Wolf's Gravestone, even R1 is still better than just about any other weapon, because it increases your attack by 49% and another 20%, and it's got a very high base attack. And then when you hit an opponent with 30% HP, it increases all of your party members' attack by 40%, which is just absolutely crazy. Which not only applies to Diluc, but it also applies against everyone else in his party, including Xingqiu's little swords when you Q. So we're going to get to that here in a minute, but let's go ahead and take a look at his artifacts. Obviously, 4-piece Crimson Witch. Last time I covered this, I was using a 2-piece Crimson Witch and a 2-piece Wanderer's Troop because I didn't have a full 4-piece Crimson Witch set, but this has changed a little bit, so let's go ahead and go through it. This one, we have some crit rate and some crit damage, which is really nice. On this one, we have a lot of crit damage. We were not really lucky with the feathers either. With this one, we have attack and a little bit of crit rate, some energy recharge, which doesn't matter, and a little bit of attack. Not a very good Sands, but it's okay. For the goblet, we're running this pyro damage bonus one, and it's got a lot of crit damage, so overall it's a pretty decent goblet. And for the hats, I've had this hat forever, and it works good on him, and it works good on Hu Tao as well. So it gives us crit rate, and it's got a lot of crit damage as well. So overall, this is really good for the 4-piece set. And then we have him C1. This is not necessary. It's just a little bit of extra damage against enemies with higher HP. For his talents, we're looking at 8, 9, and 9. We need to get this one up. Currently farming it. So overall, looking pretty good on the talents. I don't think I'll be able to crown these anytime soon because I'm out of crowns. I used them all on Kaching. But overall, you want to get this one up first. Yeah, Tempered Sword, you want to get this up first. So you want to crown this out. Next up, I would get your E, and then last, I would get your Q. Your Q does do a lot of damage, and it CCs everything. It's really nice. But, yeah, overall, these two are going to be your main damage dealers. Let's look at some alternate weapons real quick before we move on, because not everybody's going to have Wolf's Gravestone. So, Lithic Blade is okay on Diluc, however, he's not from Mondstadt, and a lot of his best supports also aren't from Mondstadt, so I wouldn't really favor this. Another sword that you can use that I currently don't have is the Prototype Archaic. That sword is the absolute best free-to-play option that for Diluc ever. Debate Club is the best 3-star weapon, but overall, if you're free to play, Prototype Archaic is really easy to farm, and you can get refinements of it really easily if you're lucky on the boss drops. So overall, Prototype Archaic is the best free-to-play weapon for Diluc as of now. So a couple things that you got to keep in mind when using Diluc. I did cover this in the last video, and that video actually did really well. So I kind of want to just recover them for those of you who didn't see that one. So Diluc obviously has 3 E's, right? He has 3 sword slashes with his E, and as you can see right down here, we have a little cooldown for it, okay? However, what the game doesn't tell you about Diluc's E is that there's actually a small window of time that you can perform other actions before your E resets. So, as you can see, we use our E. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. About 4 seconds between your E's. So you have 4 seconds to do whatever you want, right? So, a strategy that a lot of people use for the most part is the E. You can do up to 4 attacks with Diluc and then E again, which is actually really good because by the time you're done Eing, you're already right back to your E. But some people don't do that because you want to have your other characters to be able to swap out. That way Diluc's not on the field 100% of the time. So what you can also do is after you use your E, you can swap to another character, pop their skill, use Diluc's E again, use another character, and then pop Diluc's final E. And that actually works really well because you can swap between characters while keeping them. You can remove the pyro buff and then reapply pyro, and it'll hit independently every single time. So let's go ahead and just fight these hilly trolls down here so I can give you a genuine example. And yeah, so you can see what my Diluc's numbers look like, even though you already got a showcase. And then yeah, we'll get into the party members right after this. So I usually start off with Xingqiu just to start them all off. Then I'll pop his Q, and then we'll swap to Venti, and then we'll swap to Diluc. And Diluc really does have the big boy numbers. Now in that example right there I showed you, I didn't really have too much, but this is what his Q looks like after you get all 3 stacks of Crimson Witch. Now that's a really good stack, and every time you do it, you're increasing your pyro damage bonus. Now by how much? Let me just go ahead and show you. So before we pop his E, we're looking at a 61.6% pyro damage bonus. Once we pop it again, so once we pop his E, we're looking at a 69%. Pop it again, and you have a 76%. One last time, and you have an 84%. Now, not only that, but after you hit an enemy, your attack skyrockets. So now, not only do we have an 84% pyro damage bonus, but if you are using Wolf's Gravestone, you're going to get that extra effect after hitting an enemy that's low. So your attack is increased by 40%. And keep in mind, this stacks with this and this. So overall, you're getting about 90% attack increase, which is absolutely insane. Now we are rocking Bennett in this team, so we are already getting the 25% attack, but 3100 attack is absolutely crazy. And as you can see right there, we just hit 5k and he's not even a physical build. So overall, this is why I think Wolf's Gravestone is the absolute best 5-star weapon. So I don't think there's really any other better weapon on Diluc, or more consistent weapon for that matter. I think this is by far the best, most consistent weapon on Diluc. And since he does scale with crit rate, you don't have to use Serpent Spine, but I also think that is a really good option for a Diluc build. So guys, one last thing that I want you guys to consider when playing Diluc is animation canceling. Because after you pop your Q, your sword is going to be infused with pyro, and you want to get the most out of that as possible. And Diluc's scaling, his last attack does do a lot of damage, but he keeps his sword in the ground for a really long time, and it's a long animation. So the easiest way to cancel that is by right after doing that, you can jump, which does shorten the time a lot, or you can dash right out of it. The last way you can actually animation cancel, which I haven't mentioned yet, which I probably should have mentioned earlier, is using your E. So after you do that, you pop your E immediately, and then you can pop it again, and then pop it again, even though I messed up. But generally, that's how you can animation cancel all 4 attacks, is after you pop your Q and get the most out of your pyro. So guys, the last thing before I let you guys go, this is the party that I'm rocking. We'll go through all of this independently, but generally you want to use Diluc with Xingqiu. These two are absolutely insane together, and Xingqiu is actually one of the best supports in the entire game. Now, Diluc does do more damage over melt, so the damage multiplier for Vaporize is actually at 1.5x, and the damage multiplier with melt is going to be 2x. So melt overall does more damage, but with Xingqiu, it's just so consistent. You're so constantly hitting the you're going to be hitting Vaporize more than you would be hitting melts. So in the long run, especially when you see people do one-shot builds, they're using cryo to hit those big numbers because it does have a higher multiplier. With Xingqiu, it's a lot more consistent because with his Q, you're constantly shooting swords at them and removing the cryo effect and putting on the hydro effect. So if you don't have Xingqiu, or if you haven't leveled him, you can always use someone like Kaya. Not really a problem. Your Diluc will hit really high numbers, but he just won't be hitting them as consistently, as it's harder to apply cryo with someone like Kaya or someone like Xiangyang. For your third in slot, I would say Venti is really good. I love using him. Diluc's Q can actually hit all the enemies inside of Venti's swirl on his Q ability. So I think these two function really well together, especially if you can infuse the swirl with hydro. Diluc's numbers are absolutely insane if you can hit everybody, and you can just CC everything in the game with these two together. If you don't have Venti, you can always use somebody like Sucrose. I would definitely go with an Animo character. So someone like Sucrose, maybe Jean if you need a healer and you're not using Bennett. But I would say probably Sucrose is the next best up, right under Venti. For the last one, we're obviously using Bennett. We're getting that extra attack. That's not really why we're using him though. We just kind of needed like a reliable healer, as Xingqiu's swords only heal so much. They only heal just a little bit. If you don't want to use Bennett, you can use somebody like, I would probably go with Cryo. So if you wanted to use somebody like Xiangyang or somebody like Kaya, generally you could even throw in somebody like Fischl for a little bit of overloaded, or just generally whoever. You can use Zhongli, just somebody with a decent elemental reaction, unless you need the heals, which is why I'm using Bennett. But overall, the last character is usually the most flexible one in all builds, and that goes for this build as well. But at the end, I think Diluc is actually a really strong character and one of the most overlooked characters in the entire game, just because he's been in the game for so long. Everybody's hyped for the new characters, but they don't stop to look back and see how OP that their first characters were inside of the game. A lot of people don't agree with Diluc's Q as it pushes enemies back. However, it can reset attack animations from some of the highest and biggest enemies inside of the game. Overall, I don't see this as a problem, and considering that it does fuse your sword with pyro for quite a long time, I think that it's actually really strong. So if you have Diluc, try out this build, please. You won't regret it. It's a very strong build. I think Diluc is one of the funnest characters inside of the entire game. Not to mention that he's the only character with multiple E's. So I think that Diluc is very strong. And yeah, if you guys did enjoy this video, let me know down in the comment section. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.